aka Diz, and this is the Force always.
Okay, so let's get on with the Star Wars news. Making news this week. Later on in the show on Disney Plus, I'm doing these reviews for the Mandalorian. Disney. It's called Disney Gallery, and it's featuring the Mandalorian behind the scenes. It's episode 6. It's called Process. Episode 6, Process, and I'll review that later on in the show in the review section. But that is part of the news. Disney Plus at the moment, if you've got the service, it's got a whole lot of Star Wars stuff, including this Disney Gallery, which is all about the behind the scenes of the Mandalorian. So check that out now. It's on Disney Plus via your internet, wherever you are in the world. Two more news. Jedi Temple has started June 3. It's on YouTube, Star Wars Kids, hosted by Ahmed Best, which played Jar Jar Binks in episode 1 and sort of 2 and sort of 3. Great man, let me just add. Absolutely a great man. I did meet that guy. I got his autograph. I got his photo back in Celebration in Chicago. That was the last one. But anyway, check out Jedi Temple. It looks fantastic. It's a really well done looking series. I've not been able to check it out myself yet, but it visually, the actual look of the broadcast looks good. The logo looks good, and even having Ahmed Best is good. It's all good. So check that one out. Anyway, that's some Star Wars news. To more Star Wars news, John Boyega, who played Finn in the sequel trilogy, let's call it, that is 7, 8, and 9, has really voiced his opinion in the last couple of days because of the unfortunate events we've all had to endure, including the Floyd family themselves. Rest in peace to George Floyd, coming on my behalf, and my well wishes to his friends and family. But anyway, John Boyega has really voiced his opinion in London, really just showing us a force of strength through these really troubling times. So yeah, you can probably check what he sort of did via somewhere on the internet, but good on you, John Boyega. Anyway, so that really is the Star Wars news this week. Let's get into views. Views is my story ideas of anything that's in Star Wars. It could be a poster, it could be a TV series, it could be a cartoon, it could be the movie itself. And my story idea this week is going to be about Mandalorian. It's coming up in a couple of months. What should be the opening episode? It's a bit of a tough one. It's sort of like I'm for it and not for it. But I think the opening episode should be really about I think the character Boba Fett. We've sort of got a sneak preview from last season and sort of, details that he's going to be appearing in season 2 of The Mandalorian that is on Disney Plus. It's a live action film TV series about Star Wars, held on the events after Return of the Jedi. But anyway, that's another story. I think the first episode should be Boba Fett, because I think it would just really give a boom start, a juicy episode of nostalgia, a juicy episode of originality, because we're going to see a different type of Boba Fett, I'm sure, and some answers, and just sort of really kick off the season. The only thing I'm a little bit afraid of with that is that Boba Fett is probably a bit too nostalgic for the hardcore fans, and it may be sort of seen as a little bit fan servicey. But personally, let's get that one episode. If it's one episode, let's hope it's not too many episodes. Let's just keep having bits and pieces everywhere of different type of stories within this Mandalorian universe type of storyline. But I think it should be the Boba Fett one. Just get it out the way. Let's and really just kick off the season with a great first episode. That's for season 2. That's my idea, my story idea. What the actual story would be, well, that's another story in itself for another time. But anyway, so that's my views for this time around. Let's get into the reviews. Reviews this week is on Disney Plus, Star Wars, The Mandalorian, pretty much behind the scenes. It's episode 6. It's called Process. Straight off the bat, this is a 7 out of 10. It's the type of episode that is behind the scenes, and it does have interesting elements, but it's just it's sort of got itself stuck. I just find it to be, nothing mind-blowing, nothing new. It's not bad, it's just not great. I would say it's good. It's definitely the type of episode you need to really watch again for the sake of getting the detailed information, because they really do speak in riddles. I think a little bit, it's not so clear, but I'd be personally more interested in knowing the reason why the Mandalorian is the Mandalorian, things like that, fun facts like that, why the Mandalorian is the Mandalorian, why Baby Yoda was a part of the series. Things like this, just something that we can learn from and have some exciting stories to tell about this series. But so it's just sort of doing, in this episode, it's doing the same thing as we've seen before in featurettes, which is, it's great, it's right behind the scenes, but it's just a little bit, it's nothing out of the ordinary. But 7 out of 10, I will still watch it. I'm one of these hardcore Star Wars fans who watch pretty much anything, but I think it's still valid to be, enjoyable. Anyway, so that's my reviews for this time around, which was, again, a 7 out of 10 for that episode. Let's get into interviews. Okay, so interviews is a 2Q, that's 2 questions where I ask myself for you guys out there. The first question is, because of the unfortunate events in this last week, it is really, for a person like myself, that, is all about equality. I come from a very rich background in hip-hop that really taught myself a lot of things about myself and the world around me, and it's just absolutely disgusting what we have to go through right now, and including the actual George Floyd family, but having that sort of relevant in the conversations we're having, could Star Wars really touch on a story that would deal with racism? And I'm saying yes, but because it's Star Wars is Star Wars, it is sort of like cultures. It's sort of like planets that are different sort of settings, and people look different, and people look the same, and people have their own beliefs, and it is really a world that is a bigger world, obviously. But I think a political aspect about like a racism type of thing would really work in Star Wars. It would really give it a lot of emotion to the story. I find personally I get very emotional when I watch films like Mississippi Burning, Do the Right Thing. It's, oh my goodness, it really is a very bad thing in life, but it does. It is just a real. It would be an interesting story to tell within Star Wars. I'd like to see it happen. I think it can happen, and whether it happens, I don't know. They have touched on many sort of things within Star Wars that are not really Star Wars related. One time they had a Godzilla type creature in Clone Wars, which was sort of like Godzilla meets Star Wars in a way, which was sort of funny. But even though this is not a racism, real topic, it does show that Star Wars can make things valid if they do things right. Maybe that Godzilla episode in Clone Wars was a little bit silly, but at the same time, it sort of worked. But yeah, I think it could be a really good thing to deal with within Star Wars. It would, and have it would teach people as well, because I think Star Wars, including for myself, is a way of life, and it represents life, and I think that is an unfortunate part of life, and to know how to deal with it, and the ups and downs of that would be a story to be told. Anyway, so that's my first question. The second question is, can Star Wars find its fan base again? We know that this is a completely different type of question. Can it look, I find that a lot of the fan base really started disintegrating since The Last Jedi. I don't think it was deservedly so, but it really did start to dissolve at that point. I think personally it can, but it's going to take an unexpected moment to really jolt people back into Star Wars. I don't think it's dead. There's no way it's dead. It is definitely on track, and always will have a great following, but it did lose a lot. I remember being in, again, I've said this story maybe a couple of times, but I remember being in line at Orlando before The Last Jedi was out. That was for The Last Jedi panel and the 40th celebration of Star Wars. And the excitement amongst fans and the way that the fans embraced each other then was just magnificent, amazing. It was really, really heartwarming. It was a very hard thing to do, line up for 19 hours and then 19 hours again with no sleep. Boy, it was hard. But you felt the fan passion at its height. There was nothing that was really martyred at that point, besides sort of the prequels. And again, my opinion of the prequels is it's good. I understand why it can be bad, but anyway. But since The Last Jedi, it really did cause a lot of pain and anguish with a lot of people. I find it a bit unnecessary, but I understand everyone's got their certain things they like and dislike. But personally, I think Star Wars will find its fan base again, but it's going to take a real unexpected moment to really rejuvenate. But from that moment, I think Star Wars needs a plan. It needs a plan to really sort of foresee, which is pretty hard, but a plan that, it really can just push itself forward and keep pushing itself forward. Like, so far, the unexpected moment, sort of at the moment, is Baby Yoda. He is an interesting little character. But we need something bigger than that, especially on the big screen, to really have that fan base embrace again. And I think one of the secrets in storytelling is to have anticipation for the next episode without it being a to be continued type of feel, but have anticipation for their next storyline. Well, I think that's it. Part of The Last Jedi, I will agree that it sort of lacked in. There wasn't really much about that we could look forward to in the next installment. Until we knew that the Emperor was coming back, it created excitement. But as we sort of got to know, the Emperor was sort of a bit of a last-minute decision, which I think worked, but for a lot of people, it didn't. But anyway, it will find its fan base again. I ended off with that question because I just think we need to break up this whole feeling of the world at the moment. So let's just try and find positive things in life out of negative things, and really just keep rocking. And as this Star Wars show is a weekly Star Wars show for news, views, reviews, and interviews. I'm here weekly. Subscribe to the channel, The Force Always, only on YouTube. You know, and until next week, my friends, keep rocking.